Hello, my name is Tom Stiles, and this is Tom's Radio Room Show. And it's gotten kind of cold down here in Florida and other parts of the country. It's downright freezing. So it's not too bad in Florida. Right now it's about 58 degrees at 10 a.m. here in Florida. Yeah, so much for the weather report. Okay, let's go on. I've been looking through books that might be of interest to my viewers, and I found a pretty darn good one. And I got it on, um, well, I should say, I got it in the Kindle ebook format, and that's what I'm going to show you right now. Here we go. Stand by. Okay, there it is. It's the ham and shortwave radio for electronic hobbyists. And this one is just come out. And it's by Stan, and I won't try Galipsico. I just can't pronounce names, so I'm not going to try. So anyway, it's by Stan, and Stan has written a number of books on electronics over the years. And if I go to my next bookmark, this is the in the book, and it's about the author, and it states that he's an electronic engineer and mathematician, and has authored multiple tooks. That's a book and a title. Multiple titles for McGraw-Hill, including the Demystified and the Know-It-All. I need to see if he's got a book about speech impediments. Oh boy. Okay, Know-It-All series. And I've read some of his books on Demystified, like Electronics Demystified and stuff like that. And they're pretty good books, and they're very thorough. Excuse me. He's also been active as an amateur radio operator since 1966 and operates from his station W1GV in Black Hills, South Dakota. Boy, I bet she's cold today. Anyway, moving on. So here's chapter 1. Excuse me. Hobby radio, a technical overview. And he goes over the various types of radio. Shortwave radio, amateur radio, and where to go, CB radio. And it just gives you kind of introductory to what these are. Just, they can skip this chapter probably. Anyway, let's go to the next thing I've highlighted, which is a chapter, and he has a couple of chapters on radio propagation, radio wave propagation, excuse me. And so this is kind of just a general overview of it, and then later chapters he gets into more specifics about what can affect your reception. So that's a good start. And then he goes into, again, his short introduction, and he does this, he kind of touches on subjects, and then later in the book you go into more detail. But he touches on single sideband, what it is, and how to tune it. There's a picture representing a single sideband transmission, and there's a circuit. And let's go on a little further. Just trying to highlight things that are in this book. There's lots and lots of information, lots of details, and most of it is on a level that even I could understand, if you can believe that. Okay, receiver fundamentals. It goes through and tells you, some of the characteristics of receivers, such as selectivity, dynamic range, noise figures, types of receivers, direct conversion, super heterodyne receivers, and gives you diagrams, schematics, talks about the various stages of receivers, how they work. I mean, just it goes into all the detail that you could possibly want. So let's go on to the next section I've highlighted, which is the shortwave broadcast bands. And this is in regards to the international shortwave broadcasting bands. Here's a listing of them, both in frequency range and meter designation. And then he goes through each of these meter bands and tells you something about the band. You know, when you can receive it, what frequency, what kind of content will be on those bands. For instance, if we come down here, here's the 31 meter band, which is the band from 9.4 megahertz to 9.9 megahertz, which there are a lot of international shortwave broadcast here. And it's just above, just below the 30 meter amateur radio band. And this is where I listen a lot, is in the 31 meter band. It's usually pretty good in the evenings. And he tells you when to listen to each of these bands too, what time of day. This is what we got next. Okay, we talked about that. Here's a section on a simple antenna for shortwave listening. Now, some of the things in here I think he kind of misses. For instance, he talks about taking, some bell wire and stringing it out in your backyard or whatever and hook it to your antenna to improve, as he says, you get enhanced performance using these type of antennas. And I think the point he misses is that one thing you have to keep in mind, if you just use a straight wire and bring it into your house with no coax cable to do the final transfer into your house, you're probably going to pick up RF noise from inside your house. So I try to point out that once you have the antenna up, to get it into the house, you should use shielded coax cable to keep that RF noise that's in your house out of your antenna. And he also mentions the use of an antenna tuner. Now, I'm kind of on the fence about an antenna tuner for shortwave listening. I don't know if it's necessary. I've used them and I haven't seen that much improvement. But I will say I haven't done that much testing. And that's probably one thing I should do, is I should sit down with a tuner. I do have several tuners, and they have modes where you can switch the tuner in and out, and so you're coming straight from your antenna versus going through the tuner and doing tuning of the signal before it gets to the radio. I should do a show on that to see the effects of the tuner. And of course, it's going to be very empirical data. So the more, call it test cases I do, the better the information will be. That's one problem with these types of things. A given situation, you've got so many variables that one day it might work and the next day you might get something totally different. Kind of like listening to shortwave radio. One day the bands are hopping, the next day you can't get squat. So anyway, moving on. Next section, he talks about sunspots and how they affect shortwave radio, and how they affect the maximum usable frequency, and what is meant by MUF. Okay. Yeah, I already did that. And I did that. And I did that. Okay. Then in chapter 3, he goes into ham radio communication modes. And of course, like I say, this radio is about shortwave listening and ham radio. Covers both facets. And then he talks of various modes, Morse code. There's a radio teletype. and some software that will decode that PSK, and there's also a PSK 31. Here it is, B PSK 31. Again, software to decode that on your computer so that it's taking an analog signal that you're getting off of your shortwave radio and converting it into digital information. And that's quite fun. It's amazing to see that noise that's coming out of your radio to turn into, "This is Joe. How are you doing?" It's amazing. Okay, moving on. Okay, next chapter, chapter 4, is ham radio licenses and frequencies. The type of license you can get. There's a variety of license you can get depending on your expertise, and you have to pass a more stringent test to get the higher license, but it gives you more privileges. And the thing about amateur radio licenses is the rules change from country to country. So I have to keep that in mind. So, and there's an overall view of the frequency ranges and the ham radio meter bands, or in some cases centimeters and millimeter bands, that are available. Then it talks about setting up a fixed ham station and what you'll need, how you should power it, stuff like that, how you get your antennas in, all kinds of stuff. And in what to look for in an amateur radio band, and a lot of this, not most of it, applies to just a shortwave radio receiver, radio. One of those things, I had too much coffee this morning. It talks about going portable and what are the options for portable operation. Then he has a section on antennas, types of antennas, what characteristics there are, half-wave antennas, for instance, so on. Again, this applies somewhat to just listeners. And we have chapter 8 is ham operating basics. And there's something I always try to remember. Listen, listen, listen. And that applies if you're a ham operator or just a shortwave listener. You got to listen, listen, listen. Like I said before, some nights things will be booming. Some nights you think your radio is completely dead. So you got to just turn it on and listen and see what you can find. Okay. And here's some ham operating basics. Oh, that's where we were before. Okay, yeah. Moving right along, let's see where we are. This doesn't highlight over here where I'm at, does it? Oh, yes, it does. And I did that. Now, here's an appendix, and this is an appendix showing you schematic symbols. If you're going to get into repairing and modifying radios, you'll have to learn these symbols that will appear on schematics, and it gives them to you. And then there's a couple more appendix. Here's an appendix on Q signals used by ham radio operators. These are signals that are usually used for CW code operators, and they're abbreviations for statements. Like, for instance, QRB, which means how far away from my station are you located? Or let me see if I can find QRP. Do you want me to reduce my transmitter's RF output? So there's a list of those Q signals that hams use. So if you're going to listen to ham operators, it's nice to know what those abbreviations mean. Okay. And then we have 10 code signals for CB operators, if you're listening or transmitting on CB, and then 10 code signals for police and emergency personnel. Of course, they have gone away from the HF bands. Well, quite a long time ago, they went away from the HF bands. So most of these now, the police and emergency EMS, will be on the BHF bands or UHF bands. So probably won't get them on your shortwave radio. That's what I'm trying to say. So anyway, again, this is the title of this book is Ham and Shortwave Radio for the Electronic Hobbyist. And this particular form is in the ebook form, and you can get this off of Amazon. I'm going to try to set up a playlist which I put all my book reviews in, so it's easy to find my book reviews if you're excited about books and books reviews. Anyway, that's the show for today. Goodbye.